Dave here, how are you? I trust the stream is coming through well. I hope you've had a good week. And today is the 25th of October. Hopefully it's coming through. If someone can let me know, that'd be great. I could actually just click this little thing down here. And what's it saying? It says waiting for me. So I don't know if it's streaming or not. Dear, one of those things. Greetings from North Kentucky. Sound and vision is good. Well, why isn't it running on my other monitor? I don't understand this. I do not understand. Not to worry. I'll close that one. Great. Okay, so today is a day that I've been waiting for about a year to get back to you guys and let you know how my solar system is going. It's okay. Thanks, Derek. All good. Thanks, Peter. Thinking about you, buddy. Now, back on track. So today we're going to talk about the solar panels, the installation, how it's performed, whether I'm happy or not, all that kind of stuff. And also, if we get a chance, I'm going to do the second of the chisel sharpening demos using the slow speed wet grinder. This is the Triton that I have. There's plenty of models out there. Tormek are basically seen as the elite. And then you've got this, and you've got Shepax, and all sorts of brands are going to jump on and do it as well. Okay, and I have sent it out to, hello Dave, so how are you going? I'm going fine, fine. Oh, you might notice last week when I was doing the demo, there was a big hole in my arm from the stupid dog. Well, it's just about gone. I don't heal up too bad for an old guy, do I? All right, so let me read the run sheet and we'll hook straight into it because I know everyone's very curious about this subject. Solar power 1 year on. Now, I had a local company use. There's no affiliation with me. I wanted to use someone who was local, so I had come back if there was anything wrong or if I needed anything adjusted. That's why I didn't jump in and grab one of these things that's multi-advertised on TV. I possibly spent a little bit more money, but the satisfaction is fantastic and the advice and help brilliant. Having a local electrical company do the job for me was so good because I could ask them to do other little things for me in conjunction with the installation that I know if I had got someone just straight off a mass multimedia advertising campaign, they wouldn't be as interested to help me out with my particular needs. So, g'day Woodwork and Whiskers, how are you? Michael, how you doing? So one of the things that when I started down this track, now I'll let you know, I've already got a 2 kilowatt system on the house. And that was installed around 10 or whatever years ago, and I was getting the 60 cents per kilowatt feed-in rate. This is when Peter Garrett was a member of parliament and basically pushed to have all this water tanks, all that kind of stuff. I jumped on board, got the free grant. Oh, sorry, it was a grant, interest-free grant, I should say. I had to pay it back. And I was very happy with that. But solar panels have increased in technology so much in the last 10 years, you'll be very, very surprised. One of the things that these guys did for me is eSmart. They put a link in down the bottom, as I say, there's no affiliation. They didn't even shave the price for me. Like I said, I'll do a video, and they said, no, it's all right, we're flat out. Good, I was happy. So what they did was I'm on 3-phase power. So let me pull it all back a little bit. 3-phase power. If you're on single-phase power, you might be restricted to how much you can generate and push out to the grid. If you're not on the grid, you can generate as much as you want and use it inside. It's only if you want to feed out to the grid. Now, I'm pretty sure that is correct. If I get anything wrong, I know there's going to be people watching who are going to pull me up quickly, and they can put comment down the side. Or if it's after the show, in the comments down below. And please add comments as we're going along, or if you're watching the recording. Now, let me get back to where I was. Okay, so if you're on a single phase, you might be able to max out at around 10 kilowatts of power to be able to push out. Now, first of all, I'm going to explain a couple of electrical terms, and I'll try and let you comprehend or imagine how much power that is. Now, a kilowatt is 1,000 watts. Now, in the old days, we used to have a 60-watt incandescent light bulb. Was probably the most common light bulb you'd stick in a bayonet fitting, which is a quarter turn, or you screw it in, which is an Edison fitting. Now, that uses 60 watts of power to run. Now, I'm going to stick with this theme a little bit longer to explain what a kilowatt hour is, or what a watt hour is, W-A-T-T, not W-H-A-T. So 1 watt hour is how they measure your consumption, or how much an item uses, and it can be rated. So a 60-watt light bulb that runs for 1 hour will use 60 watt hours. Okay, so over an hour, it's used 60 watts. If it's been turned on for 5 minutes, well, it's 1/12 of the amount of power that it's used. So it's actually only used 5 watt hours. Does that make sense? Please comment in the chat, because I don't want to keep talking if anyone thinks what I'm saying is garbage. Now, then we get on to a kilowatt. Now, most people are familiar with that term, or a kilowatt hour. Now, let me explain what would use a kilowatt. Back in the day, when they had strip heaters, you know, a bar heater that had a radiate, kind of a very, very shiny chrome background, and a strip heater, and you could have 1 or you could have 2 strips. All good, thanks Andrew. You could have 1 or 2 strips, and that would normally be 1,000 watts, or 1 kilowatt per bar. Now, most of them, if you're cold enough to turn it on, you turn both bars on, and you'd have 2 kilowatts being pumped out. A lot of fan heaters, you know, those little fan heaters that you can put down in front, blows nice warm air all over you, they normally are a 2 kilowatt element, and they will consume 2 kilowatts to make it run. You can adjust them down to 1,500, or, you know, they've got a variable thing and a thermostat in them a lot of the time. Now, let me get back to a single bar radiator with a 1 kilowatt strip in it. So if you leave that heater on for 1 hour, it's used 1 kilowatt hour. Now, most people would use it probably at night time. They'd turn the telly on at tea time, maybe at 6 p.m, and head off to bed around 11 in winter, maybe a little bit earlier. So you might have that heater on for 5 hours. You have consumed 5 kilowatt hours just on that heater. I'm hoping this all works great. There we go. This room in here, the amount of lighting that I have is 600 watts. Very close to it, because it's all LED. It's very low on consumption for this bright, bright light that I'm so fortunate to have. Run it for an hour. For the time of this show, it will be 0.6 of a kilowatt hour of electricity that I have used. Now, you might turn around and say, well, Dave, that's all well and good. I understand all of that. But so what? Well, the electricity companies that you buy power from will charge you per kilowatt hour, or portion thereof. Now, I am in a situation where I am on a flat rate, and that's what I wanted. Some companies, retailers, will offer you a low charge called off-peak at nighttime, when everyone has basically gone to bed, and there's still the power stations are still pumping out power, so they want to be able to send it out and sell it. So what they do is they drop the price down a lot, and that's normally when a lot of off-peak hot water services, so it's a 60 litre or 60 gallon, I should say. I'm kind of mixing up my years, aren't I there? A 60 gallon tank, which used to be the standard when I was a kid, and it would turn on at nighttime, heat up, And these things would normally lose around over 24 hours. If you didn't turn the tap on and drain any hot water out of it, it would lose only around about 2 degrees Celsius out of the temperature of the water. Now, back in the old days, they used to charge these tanks up really, really hot. And so now sometimes the tanks only heat to around 70 degrees Celsius. Of course, they're thinking, why heat all this water up way up near boiling point when you're drawing it off and adding cold water to it to get the right temperature so you don't burn your hands or your body when you're having a shower. There's all of these other things that are happening around the site. Now, getting back to the situation that I have flat rates, because for me, not having the off-peak option, because I have gas hot water service and I have an Apricus hot water service. There's 2 buildings that have hot water services on them here. An Apricus is a solar design. I'm going to show you a picture of the Apricus so that you know what's happening. Let me see, where are we? All right, now this is a picture of the studio on the property. Now, you'll see in the middle of the picture there, it looks like a satellite dish. Well, that's what it is. It doesn't get used, but that's what it is. Right beside that is the Apricus hot water service. Now, that is a thing that's got evacuated glass tubes, which means there's no air in there, they're vacuumed, and it has black copper rods down the inside of those evacuated tubes. Those rods get hot in the vacuum, and the heat is convection, and it goes up to a flat copper panel that's possibly around 4 inches by, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch thick by the length, which is across the top of all of those rods in a small tank. That's a very small black tank across the top. So they heat up, and there's a small little pump that costs about 2 cents a day that circulates water from a storage tank up around through that tank and then back down to the hot water service. It does have a booster, so if it doesn't heat up to temperature, and I have it set to 70 degrees Celsius, if it doesn't heat to temperature by the time that the sun goes down, then I have the electrical booster kicks in. Now, there's an interesting thing about this particular building. Being in the southern hemisphere, our best solar orientation is north. In the northern hemisphere, your best solar orientation is going to be south. The closer to the equator, the less really it's going to make any difference. If you're within the tropics of Capricorn and Cancer, you are going to have a much better return from solar power than I have, being 35 degrees or 32 degrees south of the equator. The further south you go, like towards Hobart, Tasmania, it's going to be even less. So the further away from the equator, the less economical it is to have solar power. Let me come back to me again. Now, if there's any questions as I'm going along, please put them in the chat over there, and I'll try and address them. We're only just 13 minutes into the show. I'm going to try and run this for the next half hour, then I'll jump onto this guy and do a little bit of chisel sharpening at the end, because this is really easy. Okay, so where was I up to? Solar orientation on that particular building. Now, that building is not facing north because it's the aesthetics of the property here. I wanted to be able to have the really nice part of the building facing in towards the middle of the property. So as I drive down the drive, that's what I see. Now, I'm going to go back to the picture again. They work pretty well. They sure do. They sure do. So I'm going back to the picture again. Where those panels are on the back of the building, believe it or not. So they are facing nearly east. So they are facing north, east, east. The top section of the roof is 45 degrees. The bottom section of the roof over the lounge room area there is facing, is around about 12 degrees off horizontal. Now, I had on the other side of the building, so let's have a look at the other side of the roof. I haven't got a picture of it, but if you pretend you're on the other side, which faces up towards the street, so as you drive down the driveway, you would see the other side of the building has no panels on it whatsoever. Now, it used to. We used to have 6 panels on the other side, but what happened was in the afternoon, we have a fair few trees here in the Blue Mountains, and I ended up getting a a nice shadow over those. So they weren't being very efficient. So this is where the installer really came back to help me out. I got in touch with him and I said, Dean, I think I need to move those 6 panels off there and put them on the east facing. And he said, well, you're not going to get any solar performance in the afternoon when you're using electricity. And I said, the thing is, I'm an early riser. So I like to use electricity first thing in the morning. Now those panels facing northeast east that are 45 degrees catch the very, very first rays of sun in the morning. And I have a very, very steep curve of solar production. So by 7 o'clock at the moment, as we're going through spring, at 7 o'clock in the morning, those top panels are performing nearly at maximum power in comparison to all the other panels that are on the property. As the sun rises, we also get all the rest of the panels start to perform really well. As we go towards 2 o'clock in the afternoon, those panels on the 45 degree pitch, you lose all power totally, but all of those panels on the flatter section of the roof, which is around about, as I say, around 12 degrees, they perform fantastically. So there's 3 buildings on the property. This one, the one that I'm in at the moment talking to you from, let me come back to here, the one that I'm in at the moment, and another building up the top. Now the other building up the top has got 2 kilowatts on it. It's been there for years and years and years and years. These 2 buildings down here combined now have 13.2 kilowatts of generator on them. It's split. Each building is basically feeding into one individual phase of my 3-phase supply. The maximum in Australia you can go to in a residential situation with 3-phase power is 30 kilowatts. Now I'm at half that. And I did say I was going to let you know how things were going with it. So here we go. The first slide that I want to show you, let me see. Yeah, we'll go with this, which is the solar production. And no, I don't have any battery storage. It is a waste of money at the moment. I use the grid as my storage. Now, before we go any further, what I'll say is I pay 24 cents per kilowatt hour that I pull in from the grid. So at night time, when I have no power being produced by my generator, it's costing me 24 cents. And some people might say that's expensive. But I get 12 cents for every kilowatt hour that I don't use here from my own generation. So we are on a system where I use all of the solar power and on the property, but if I'm creating more than my property demands, it feeds out to the grid and I'm getting 12 cents per kilowatt hour. This is why I've got such a large system here. I'm using the grid as my battery. So at night time, I'm buying the power back at twice the price that I sold it to the retailer. But it has been working quite well for me. Obviously, the 6 months from October through to January, February, to the end of March, I'm going to be singing all the way to the bank. During winter, it's a different story because we have a lot of trees, hills, all that kind of stuff, and the sun tracks much lower, so it can't reach a lot of the panels that we have. All right, so I'll jump onto this one here. Right, let's punch that one over. Now, if you're on a large TV, you might be able to see what I've got there. If you're on a phone, you're going to have a hell of a time actually reading anything that I have. Now, the left-hand column under solar production is the 13.2 kilowatts of power that is the new one. I do have a smart meter as well. Thanks, Planty. Now, I'll get to that. Now, you remember at the beginning of the show, I said I had 12.2. When I moved things around, like when Dean came back from eSmart Solar and moved those 6 panels for me, I said, look, I think we can squeeze another 3 panels on the roof, and the inverter that we had in this building could handle it as well. So we put another 3 panels on top of my workshop, and it's pushed it up another kilowatt, which is of production, which is fantastic. So you'll see down the left-hand side, these are how much I'm generating per day just from this 13.2 kilowatts setup. And you can see it's quite handy. You know, there's times there that are 67, 68 kilowatt hours for the day. And then you'll see also I'm doing a cumulative read. So it's a progressive read on the 2 kilowatt generator that's on the house. And they're the figures that are coming through on the little meter that's the inverter there. And on the next column, which is the third column across, which is yellow, it says panels on the house, 2 kilowatt hours. And you can show it's, you know, that's still performing quite well. Not bad for a, you know, 10 or 11-year-old system. I was quite surprised. I was considering pulling that off and putting a new system on because those panels are only 160 watts. All the new panels are 330. And they're much the same size. I did say that in 10 years' time, technology has gone fantastic. So the combined total, which is the green column, you're looking at there of 14.2, well, it's actually 15.2 now, is looking quite healthy. And for that amount of days, this is October only. So you can see down the bottom of that column, it's saying 1290.62 kilowatt hours. Now, there's another thing I'll mention here. I'll just jump into this one again. Like all things in decimal, it depends, Michael, it depends on who your retailer is as to how much they're going to pay you for going out and how much they're going to charge you for bringing it in. You have to shop around. I don't know if you only have one retailer down there. Up here, we've got a few. I'm not going to mention the retailer I've got, just letting you know that's the deal that I've got. All right. Now, like all things decimal and what have you, if you're working, the metric system is based basically on 1,000 millimeters is a meter. Similar kind of thing with kilowatts. You know, it's K for kilo. You know, it's the metric way of measuring electricity or of supply and what have you. So that's the way they work it out. So 1 watt times 1,000 is a kilowatt. 1,000 kilowatts is called a megawatt. Now you'll hear generators that are built and it's got X amount of megawatt capacity. So these big hydro schemes and nuclear generators, all that kind of, it'll be rated as in how many megawatts. And I think if it's another 1,000, it's called a gigawatt. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you're going to have to check. I think it's gigawatt. Oh, to have a gigawatt of power up here. All right, so megawatt hours. Hours is the crucial thing. I'll go back to that again so we can see how we're going on this one. All right, so you'll see at the bottom of that green column, we've got 1.29 megawatts, which is pretty cool. Now also in the red section, or the orange section down the bottom, 1,000 megawatts. Okay, thank you. Thanks, guys. All right, so down the bottom there, you'll see total kilowatt hours on the new system is 13.523. That's for the year. It did increase by 1 kilowatt about 6 weeks ago. So you can see during this month of October, and remember we aren't finished in October, there's still 7 or so or 8 days left there as far as this grid was concerned. I produced 1.146 megawatt hours, I should say, from the new system. The old system generated 0.14 of a megawatt hour. All right, now over on the right-hand side, we've got the grid import and export. Now, this lets you know how much power I'm pulling in when I'm not consuming my own power I'm generating or after the sun goes down. And you can see for the month, I've pulled in 420 kilowatt hours. And at 24 cents, that comes to $100.80. Now, if you're very quick on the sums, you'll probably realize that that is incorrect. And I'm going to tell you why. Say you want to hail a taxi cab. How much is it going to cost you? Well, it's not just the meter from, how many kilometers you're going to go. There's flagfall. Flagfall is the first thing that happens. As soon as that meter goes on, flagfall, bang, and then your consumption's on top. The electricity companies also have a flagfall. They call it supply. So whilst you have electricity, an electricity pole and wires and everything going past your place, and it's connected, you will get charged a supply fee. For me, it's 92 cents a day. Now, I've added all of those factors into the spreadsheet that I've got. This is just a tiny bit of my spreadsheet. I've told you I'm obsessive. So every morning before 8 o'clock, I read all the meters on the property and I enter it into the spreadsheet. So there's a meter on the house. It's called the smart meter. It tells me how much I've brought in since the last time I checked. Oh, sorry, it's cumulative. It's just accumulating. So it'll tell me the reading. I push the button one more time and it'll tell me how much I've sent out. So the spreadsheet does the subtractions and additions and gives me a total at the end. Now mine is forget the name of the meter. It's something clean. I don't know. Anyway, I should possibly do a quick video on how to read the thing, and I might do that for my patrons. There you go. That'll be a nice little video for you guys to watch. Feed in 20 cents and buy it back at 25 cents. Okay, so after that 2-year contract, do you know what's going to happen? I'm not on any special contract. This is fixed rate, and I'm at the whim of what happens. So I know that there's people, when I first got the main system, I think it was 6 years, I was on a fixed rate of 60 cents per kilowatt hour that I supplied to the grid. And I don't know how much, I think I was probably paying around 28 cents for every kilowatt hour I brought in from the grid. But that was something earlier. I think a lot of these things are going to disappear. They're very, very enticing. I've seen things where they say, we'll give you 50 cents per kilowatt hour that you feed into the grid and you'll buy it for X amount, and then it's set for a certain amount of time. And then after that time, it ain't going to happen anymore. Look, I know there's a few people work in the solar industry who follow me on YouTube and also on the Facebook page, and they might be able to expand a little bit more. I don't know. Anyway, let's go back to the export and we'll have a look, because it's an interesting page. So we've got grid import and export. So you can see down there, as I say, okay, now we go over to where it's the light green column, where it says enter, and it's in the middle of that part, export kilowatt hours. And you can see I've sent out 875 kilowatt hours. I've brought in 420, and you might be thinking, wow, you'll be rolling in the money. Well, no, because remember, this is all worked out on after I consume and send out, buy in at full price and sell at half price. All right, so I'm basically 70 cents ahead, but it hasn't cost me a cent. I've used a lot of electricity, and so that's the next page that we're going to go to, and this is going to work on the date, the combined power that my photovoltaic cells have created, the total power consumed from the solar and grid per day, working on a demand of 24 cents per kilowatt hour plus 92 cents supply. I'm going to tell you that, and I've got totals for the year. And also owing to the retailer, including supply rate of 92 cents. And a negative entry is good. That means I'm ahead. It doesn't happen during winter, I'll tell you now. All right, now the other thing I want to say before I switch over to this next slide is that being on around 15 kilowatts of solar generator and having 3 buildings, you may be in a situation where you can see, right, because all of the buildings pull a fair supply, you might be in a situation where you turn around and say, right, well, divide everything by 3. Of course, I've only got 1 building to run, 1 air conditioner. So at the moment, the air conditioner is running, this is all, and it's a raining day outside, and it's all powering what's happening here. I'm not pulling anything off the grid at the moment. Even with rain and cloud, this gets ambient light on the panels, and it works. Nowhere near as good. I might be generating 2 kilowatt hours at the moment, not 10, like sometimes I can. But I'm not pulling any power off the grid right at the moment. Okay, so the last one, owing to retailer, including the supply rate of 92 cents, negative is good. Let's have a look at this one. All right, so you can see the date. This is all in October. I get Excel to automatically say the date +1, if you're interested in on how I do it to make it quick. That's in the commands for the data. Okay, so column that says THER, combined. You'll see down the bottom, combined for, it's actually October. I forgot to fill in, it's not September, it's October. Combined is 1.290.62. Oh, sorry, 1.290 megawatt hours. The total is 15.071 megawatt hours that my solar power generators combined have produced. Now, the total power consumed from solar and grid per day, you can have a look at the variations there. You can see, obviously, very, very cloudy days or very, very sunny days. Now, it doesn't work on heat. It works on photovoltaic cells. In other words, it's, you know, like trees have got photosynthesis. This is a similar thing, but instead of making chlorophyll, we're making electricity. Jordan Kelly, how are you? So there we go. That will add up. So I have the total power consumed from solar and grid. I've used 835 kilowatt hours. So I'm ahead there. Now, if I was actually paying for the electricity at 24 cents a kilowatt hour, you can see how much this is in the yellow column. I would have had to pay, just for that short amount of time, $221. That's over 23 days. Now, if we divide 221 by 3, remember, go back to the 3 buildings, go back to 1. So that would be 3's in a, basically it's around about $70-something for October so far. Now, I think that's possibly a reasonable bill for most people out there. I'm not sure. You know, you let me know in the side here if you know how much your consumption is, and this might make a little bit more sense. Now, at the bottom there, this is the part everyone's going to be thinking about. If I had paid for that electricity, this is without buying the system. If I just paid for the electricity outright, it would have cost me just under $5,000 for the year since I've had the solar installed. Now, that's not anything different to what I have been over the last few years with having the 3 buildings. This last year, as I say, it's up till, you know, the 23rd of October, it was $2,609. So basically we're looking at $2,400 I'm ahead from what I would have been. That's pretty cool. Now, when I first put the system in and I told everyone that I was doing it, I reckoned it was going to take me 4 years to break even. Working on these figures here, you can work it out for yourself, but it comes to 5.8 years. Now, one of the factors that we've got in there as well, this system was put in just before November. November, you may cast your mind back, we started having bushfires, and the first of them happened in my backyard. We had smoke everywhere. The mountains were covered in smoke. All of Australia basically was covered in smoke. We had a hell of a time with it. After that, after all the fires went, and the drought broke with a vengeance, and we went straight into flooding and rain, clouds. Okay, so my period during, you know, which should have been peak performance, was degraded big time. So I think it might be closer to 4.5 to 5 years, but you never can tell what's around the corner as far as what's going to the meteorological, that's a big word, isn't it? The weather conditions are going to be. So I'm going to have a quick look here. Andrew, I had a 6.6 system in July 2020, just received the first bill of $104 credit. I exported 2 megawatt hours to the grid. Excellent. So good. July it depends on when in July. If it's towards the end of July, because June and July are a pretty bad month for solar production, you'll probably find your next quarter, the bill will be really good. Oh, I'm trying to remember the name of that in the meter, the smart meter. It's just a crazy name. Anyway, I'll do a little video, a black label, black shirt video for my patrons, and we'll go through that. Okay, so there we go. So 5.8 years, working on 5.8 years for my investment on installing the solar panels at the current situation, all the rates that I'm getting, all that kind of stuff. The return on my money, which at the moment you can't get much. If you put it into the bank, you might be lucky to get 0.5%, maybe 1% if you really shop hard. My return is 17%. Let that sink in. Who is going to give you 17% on your money at the moment? At the same time, giving me comfort all the time in the building. The other big advantage of the panels on the roof is they act as a shade during summer. They shelter. You saw all the panels on top of the roof, because I think that Gifkin's Jig made comment, there we go, that's a lot of panels. Well, it is. So all of those panels are acting as a shade sail over the top of what those rooms. So the heat, we don't need to turn the air conditioners on anywhere nearly as much as we used to. And in the workshop here, it's the same thing. There's 10 panels over this roof here. There's 9 panels over the office. No, it's look, it's not centimeter. It's it's a good choice for a name though. I forget the name. I'll get the name and I'll do it for the Patreons. Where am I up to? I'll read what Carl said here. Home heating, hot water, heat, and clothes drying are the biggest energy consumers. What fuel do I use? I use electricity for everything except for the hot water. The hot water is a gas instantaneous, it's natural gas instantaneous heater. Everything else is electricity, and the washing machine that I've got has got a delayed start function timer. So I can throw all the stuff in, throw all my blue shirts in the washing machine at night time, and I can set it to start 14 hours after that. So I can go to bed, go to work, do whatever I want, and then when the sun is up and I'm producing, and it's always in the morning for me, I like to use a lot of power in the morning, because that's, it's from a cold night, you turn the air conditioner on in the morning, warm the building up straight away, or during summer, try and keep the building cool right at the beginning. That's why I've got most of my orientation is faced north, east, east. All of this building here, all of the panels on this building, the 19 of them, true north. So these ones look after the middle of the day for me and most of the afternoon. The ones on the other building over there facing out towards the east, pretty much, 7 o'clock, they're punching out power. Like by 8 o'clock, I can be pushing out 9 kilowatts of power off all of this. And I can get to 10, and then you combine the one up on the house as well. It's great. Have inspired me to get a 7.2 megawatt system with an 8 megawatt inverter, frequently overclocks in summer. We're very happy, but can't wait for the price of batteries to come down. When batteries come down, I will jump in. The government has to give us an incentive to actually install batteries. To give you a rough idea, it's about $1,000 per kilowatt of storage in a battery. So here I've got around 13, so it will cost me around $13,000. The thing is, the batteries only have a lifetime expectancy of 10 years. The sums don't make it yet. If they got it down to around $5,000 for 13 kilowatts of storage, or kilowatt hours of storage, I'd jump in. I'd do it. Batteries and storage, though. Something else I was going to say about it. I've forgotten now. Not to worry. Not to worry. Oh, now my panels also have, and one of the reasons mine was an expensive system, is they have what's called power optimizers under each panel. Now, a power optimizer is a DC-DC inverter. Now, the electrical wizards, I think I just have to move north, do you, Mike? Okay, so I'm going to let you know what these things do. They turn each panel into a smart panel. I had to write this down because I'm not that cluey. They are DC to DC converter to match superior efficiency, 99.5% peak efficiency, 98.8 weighted efficiency. It mitigates all types of panels mismatch loss, from manufacturing tolerance to partial shading and aging. It allows longer strings, multiple orientations, tilts, and panel types in one string. Now you might say, well, what's a string? A string is basically like if you set up a run of batteries, you know, one to the end to the end to the end, and depending on how you set them up in series or parallel, a string is the same kind of thing. A string will, say I've got 6 panels in a row, they're all connected, and they go to my inverter. Now, there's only so many panels you can put on one string. I don't know what you can max out at, but I've got 9 panels on one string over there. I've got 12 panels on another string over there. So I guess I'm getting close. These are all 330 watt panels. It's good fun, isn't it? I love this stuff. Do you have one point of supply for each building or a single one for the whole? I've got 3 kilowatts coming into the property. They're all my buildings. They're outbuildings, basically. So they're all on one metering. Okay? After about 8 years, I figure I've saved $1,200 a year. Of course. We've produced 54 megawatt hours over 7 or 8 years on a 4 kilowatt system, but feed-in tariff over 40 cents, so very low bills and usually credits over the period. That's great. Good on you, David. Dave, your 9.4 system has generated 112 megawatt hours in around 10 years. Was great on the 60 cents feed-in rate, but not so much now. Well, you jumped in early and were smart. Now, I've got a friend here in the same street that I live in who's an electrician who does a lot of my work for me. And I kept saying to him, are you going to put, you've got a perfect angle straight at north, but you're going to dose it up with panels. Nope, not going to do it. Why not? Might break with hail. Man, oh man, he's cut himself out of the deal big time. We've had massive hail here. It hasn't affected any of them. Anyway, look, I think that's going to be about enough. Oh, the other thing, right, we talked about those real-time performance measurement. So I'm also with an Israeli company that's called Solar Edge. Now, all of my panels and inverters basically read out to Solar Edge as well as push the power straight out to the grid through my smart meter. Now, Solar Edge monitoring is live. It's not a matter of, every couple of minutes. I can hit the refresh button on my computer and I can see exactly straight away how many kilowatts my system is producing, how many kilowatt hours it's produced for the day, for the week, for the month, for the year. And it gives me beautiful graphs so I can see exactly how it's been going. It gives me a bell curve during the day. So how it peaks up, so it comes up a little bit slow. It really ramps up fast on mine, and then it tapers off in the afternoon. So that's one of the other things that the optimizers and working with Solar Edge is doing for me. Automatic panel DC voltage shutdown for installer and firefighting safety. That's one of the other things that the optimizers do for me. So I'm hoping that I've given you enough information to be able to glean from what I've said. Yes, I do wash my panels, and I've got a special brush with a squeegee on the back. I don't do the ones on the 45-degree pitch. I do the ones on the lower pitches. But look, I'm a retired builder, so I'm very comfortable on a roof. It doesn't concern me at all. If you're not comfortable on a roof, don't do it. Wait for it to rain and you'll find mostly that will clean your panel for you. It was just after the fires where we had so much smoke and ash and the rain and more ash and everything, it caked on, and I had to really work hard at cleaning the panels. So I'm going to show you again this picture. Now, one of the things with that picture, when the guys came back to move the panels off the other side of the roof, now you'll see in line where the hot water service is and the skylight into that room upstairs, you'll see there's 3 panels that are horizontal. All the other panels are in portrait position up on that 45-degree roof. So those ones there, they weren't going to put any more in. And I said, why not? Oh, well, we can't get the rails in there to hold them up. And what do you mean? Because they've got this thing where they don't like people seeing the rails sticking out underneath and over the roof. And I said, I really do not care. And I spray painted the rails after they left. So they're the same color as the roof. You don't see them at all. One other great thing that they did for me is, you notice between the skylight and the Apricus hot water service, there's 2 horizontal rails, and they put those in for me because I asked them to. These mounting rails are brilliant. They're there for me to climb up on the roof to service that hot water service across the top. And I'll tell you what, they are so handy to stand on while you're on a 45-degree pitch. So it lets me get up there and have a look, clean out behind the top of the skylight from pine needles, because on the other side, behind the property, there's all these pine trees. David, we washed them once, then we had the bushfire crisis. I don't know how clean they are now. All right, coming back over here. If I remember anything else while we're going along with when I'm doing this demo with this guy, I will pipe up and let you know. But has that been interesting enough? Like, I spent a bit of time doing all this stuff for you, and this is real life. This isn't some kind of advertising scheme to kind of con you into doing solar panels. It's letting you know I took a gamble and it's paid off handsomely for me. In another 5 years' time, my initial investment will have been paid off as if I had still been paying what I normally pay for electricity. And then from there on in, it's money for jam. Thanks, Carl. All right, so this guy here, this is a slow speed grinder, and I'm going to turn this on, and you can see it's turning. Now I've got it turning towards me. All right, I'm going to put water in the side, and you'll notice that I haven't got it up on the bench because these things can make a little bit of wetness. I keep a jug down here. This is possibly a 3-litre glass jug. I'll top her up. Now the thing is with these grinders, the stone is very porous, so they soak up the water really quickly. On the side of the grinder, I'm going to switch it over to, is that your man's shed at the back with the rusty roof? That's my timber rack. Look at these things. I told you, I'm obsessive. If I had timber left over from a particular job, I used to build houses. I'd bring it home, store it in there, we'd take it to the next job. People paid me a contract to deliver a house. They didn't buy the materials and then pay me to do it. I supplied a house. Okay, great info. Dave had quotes in Victoria 6 years ago and was told a load of rubbish that made me not want to go ahead. I'll tell you what, Victoria's not going to be as good because you're further south from the equator than I am, but it still might work really well. The panels, you can get a whole lot more panel. Remember I said the panels on my roof are 160 watts. Well, actually, they're 166 watts. And for the space, the real estate they take up on my roof, it's about the same size as these panels. These are Trina panels, and they're 330 watt panels. In 10 years, pardon me, in 10 years' time, they've doubled their their watt capacity to produce. What's it going to be like in another 10 years? I'm going to switch the camera over to this one. All right, so you can see it spinning away there. I'll tip it down just a little. On the side of this reservoir is an indicator. You might see it in white down there. It was clear when I bought it. So now I've topped it. I've just hit it with a white paint pen. Don't pour it in too quick. Okay, I'm up to the line now, and I'm going to top this up, and you watch that level drop. So basically that line saying, don't put too much water in. It's dropped 1/2 inch already. Okay, topping it up again. That's how much more water I just put in, and it's starting to drop again. These things soak the water up. Never leave these things sitting in water. When you've finished using them, get rid of the water. Take this off and get rid of the water. And I'll show you a little trick if I've got time at the end as well. That's an interesting point, David. I didn't even realize that. So Germany is probably the same latitude north as Victoria is latitude south. Is that correct? That's going to do me. All right. Now, I'm going to use this jig. It's a square edge jig, and it goes onto a bar on the top here. I like to use this with the chisel on that side, facing against the rotation. So this just drops in here, like so. I might go to this camera so you can see a little bit more of what's happening and swing this around like that. Is that going to work for you guys? All good? Now, when you're putting it on, put it on this way around. Otherwise, you won't be able to get it over here because this will bump into this support leg here. So we put the chisel in with the bevel down. So I'm going to do it like that. I'm just going to hold it like so, tighten the top clamp until it starts to grab it, and then tighten this one. This actually acts as a lever. Okay, there we go. Now I can check for square by putting it against there and dropping it down. I'm slightly out of square. You may not be able to see that, but I'm a little bit out of square. So I've got to, I can actually see it just here. See that gap? Oh. There's a tiny gap there. I need to push that back up. So I'm going to back the bottom one off. And that one, that's pulled it back up nice. So I've got equal pressure either side of the chisel as I'm pulling it up. This is going to be a little bit more exciting than last week. And I had some guy make comments saying, it's not hand sharpening, you're using a jig. Well, that's correct. I was using a jig. I'm going to tap that just a touch, just to get it square. That's getting pretty close. All right, slider on. Now, I'm going to turn it off now that we've got plenty of water in there. I'm going to slide her on. Oh, before we do, we're going to use this guy. Now, this is the setting jig. You'll see here, I'm going to release it all. See at the back, there's this white part, and it can move backwards and forwards in the jig. Here is the diameter of the wheel in metric and imperial. You may or may not be able to see that. So we're going to measure the diameter of the wheel, because it's the same clamp locking this and this onto this. There's a little handy thing here. Toolmaker got the same kind of thing. And you can put it in and say, all right, working out what your angle is. It's a little bit more than 20 and a little bit less than 25. So I'm going to set it to 25. On the back, you'll see on the back of this chisel, I haven't been able to get it down. There's a bit of damage across the back of this chisel. This is not the same one as I did last week. You see that reflection? I've got to get the grind down past there. I'm going to hollow grind it, and you can see it's had a couple of goes at different angles. Now when we put it on here and down, that's when we get this guy. And it's a tricky one. We hold it this way and we slide it up like that until there's no no space. This here has got to be, we've got to make the angle on this the same as what's on here. So it sits on there and then comes up to it. So I have to raise this up a little bit. So I'm going to do that by turning that. This little wheel here. Don't know if you can see that. I'll swing that around so you might be able to see it. Here's the adjustment wheel here. And then I'm going to put this on here. And you'll just have to trust me on this one. Comes up a little bit more. Beautiful. That's right on it. I'll bring that back around. And put this back on here. Okay, you can see there's no light coming through there at all between the bottom of this and the chisel. Good. All right, now when I've got it here, I'm going to lock both. So I can let that go, it's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to lock both of these clamps on the back. Let's have a look. Trying to work out where I'm working back to front and also with that one in the corner. There we go. The switch is right beside me. And we can turn it on. Now this isn't as quick as the Sorby Pro Edge, but it's still quicker than doing it by hand. So you see the water coming up and I can push down. Nothing's getting hot. I'm working the stone evenly. There's a truing tool as well that's got a little diamond point in it that it's a good idea to dress the stone up every now and then. Now the more I push, you can see it's starting to come up blacker in the and it's quieter. Let me have a look. Can you see the grind coming up at the front? Now I'm going to keep working that and you guys can talk and we'll jump straight on. Okay. This one's also got a tensioner down the front here. You tighten that up and it brings the motor this way because the motor is actually driving the inside of this wheel. The shaft on the motor is turning against this rubber section of this wheel, which is the strop. And it's, keep my eye on what's happening here. And as you tighten this up, it's increasing the torque. Doesn't let it slip. The Tormek have got another method. I'm not sure what it is, but they think it's better than this one. Of course they do. These are pretty easy to use. I haven't done any turning tools on it. I've only done chisels and plane blades. Now I'm not pushing down hard on the whole jig. What I'm doing, see at the back here, my thumb is pushing back up on the chisel that way and down, because then I'm not deflecting this bar. If you start bending this bar, you're not going to have anywhere near as much accuracy in having a 90-degree edge on the chisel. Now you can grade the stone as well. There's a stone grader which changes it from being 220 to 1000 and back again. So I might be at the 1000 at the moment, I might be a bit slow. Look, we've gone 12 o'clock. That might be enough to let you know what's going to happen. I'm not going to bore you to death with this, but I'm hoping you enjoyed the talk on solar, on how it's performing at my place, and whether I think it's good for the environment, profitable, all of that kind of stuff, profitable to me. I'll also let you know that how much power I've produced and saved from being produced by fossil fuels I think it's around 5 metric tons of carbon dioxide that I've saved going into the atmosphere. Now, obviously, you've got production of these solar panels as well that in the early days are going to release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. But as we get more solar generating around the world, that power can be coming from solar. And I think it's the equivalent of 160 trees that I've planted as well. Let me have a look on there. That's looking great. I might just keep doing this through the Patreon Zoom meeting. I think I will. So I'm going to turn it off for the second. Switch it back over here. And that one. So there you go. Good idea, Russell. Share the love. Why not? No one's made comment on the beard this week. I gave it a bit of a trim and I mucked it up on one side. You know what it's like? You fix one side and you chase the other side. Next thing you know, it's all gone. Vicky wasn't too impressed, but that's the way it goes. Just suggested on how to generate your spreadsheet figures for your solar panel installation. Well, I'm sure plenty you'll do some stuff there along. My spreadsheet is possibly it's more than the alphabet across. There's possibly 40 columns that I use in it, and there's other things that I do in there as well that aren't associated with what I'm showing you. Solar chat was great, Dave. Much information to think about. Indeed, great chat on solar, and time to get my Triton out to sharpen again. Now this one, when I got it, this wheel was all wonky. It was going and up and down, and I fixed it really easily by undoing this, took the wheel off, I got some insulation tape and I did one rotation only over the back of the thread. So it's a threaded section and then it goes back out to being wider. And I put the wheel back on and I forced it on and then tighten it up. The tolerance inside the wheel was a little bit larger. The diameter of the wheel was a little bit larger than the axle. And so I fixed that. And then I hit it with the truing tool and it runs perfectly. The strop wheel, on the other hand, no, it's a shocker watch. It's up and down. I don't know how I can show you. Maybe like that. Can you see that bumping up and down? All right, that's it, guys. Only 42 thumbs up. Well, there you go. A lot of people may not want to go out and help the planet. Their call. All right, I think that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. Look after yourselves, be nice to each other, and I shall see you next week. Don't forget, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. See you later.